I want you. Show me the way every day. I want you to show me the way every time. I want you. What is going on, guys? It is me, Seaman Carney, and it is so great to be coming to you with these power rankings. Everything breaking my way. It seems recently, not only did my fantasy team get a big victory this week, but the power went out at work today, which means I'm sitting here at 10 o'clock in the morning, not having to go back into work. What a great feeling. Now, unfortunately, you did see what happened with the whole, dry whey protein powder experiment. As if eating dry protein powder wasn't bad enough. I really had higher expectations for that strawberry flavor. And frankly, guys, if I'm you and I'm looking for a protein powder, I would avoid the strawberry Optimum protein powder. Please don't make the same mistake that I did. All right, now, that is not why we're here, though. It is Power Rankings time, and we have some really juicy scoops coming up. Guys, let's get right into it. It's going to be a great week. I can already feel it, and hopefully this Power Rankings video creates just as much controversy as it did last week. All right, guys, you know where we always start, and you know who we always seem to be starting with. Number 12. Not a big secret this week after what a shocking events around the league. It is number 12. You took my only food, Brennan Costello. Well, Brennan, you had the lowest points this week, so I guess just call me Bill Murray from Groundhog's Day because I feel like I've said this many, many times before, okay? Deja vu happening here, and obviously I can't say how bad your running backs are enough. C.J. Anderson and Frank Gore is not a real running back combination. And I bet you really wish you had Mike Evans because your wide receivers aren't really looking that great either with DeAndre Hopkins having to catch passes from possibly, I'm willing to put him as the worst starting quarterback in the NFL right now, Tom Savage. Guys, Brennan's team, as we've all known, is a complete catastrophe. No points at the tight end spot this week. It just isn't happening for this guy. I've said it before, and I'm sure next week I'll say it again. Brennan Costello, you are the number 12 team in our fantasy football league. Moving right along, guys, we are talking number 11. And I have to congratulate this player a tremendous amount. It is the 08 Detroit Lions and Sean Bates. Well, Sean, you're probably going to have to change your team name again. After this week, you are no longer in danger of being the 08 Detroit Lions. This is great news for you. You got your first win on a Monday night miracle of epic proportions. Such congratulations go out to you. Last week, I obviously roasted your team like I do every single week, but I did commend your work ethic and the fact that you're still continuing to stay in there and try and win games. And this week, it really paid off. Falcons defense, a big pickup for you. A team, one of the best defensive performances I've ever seen from a team that didn't score a touchdown in fantasy football. All those sacks, 2 turnovers and a fumble, and only giving up 7 points. Just really brilliant stuff. And obviously, though, the story of your team begins and ends with Devin Funchess' 2 touchdown performances. 2 touchdowns in the second half. He was so quiet in the first half. I go to bed, and then I wake up and I find out this guy has a huge game. I was rooting for you all the way. Cam, obviously, and I are in competition for the fantasy football playoffs. And you knocking his team off really helps me, Sean. Such big congratulations. Your team is still really not that good. You got 2 points from your quarterback spot, which is pretty pathetic, but you managed to win despite that. And Sean, I couldn't be happier for you, and I also couldn't be happier for the real reason I'm happy, which is me, because I benefited from this. So really don't care about you as much, but still a little bit, which I hope is okay with you. But anyway, congratulations. In all seriousness, 1-9. I was surprised when Brendan's team got a win first, because I feel like your roster has a little bit more potential. Brandon Cook still sucks, but other than that, good on you this week, Sean. Congratulations, you're number 11. Moving on to number 10, and this has to be my favorite part of the video. Coming in here at number 10, you guessed it, Hauschka come home and Cam Wattenslager. Cam, you are a 5-5 team, but you have taken a massive hit. When you give someone their first win of the year this deep into the season, I don't see how you can argue with this ranking. Your team, last week, I expressed very, very deep concern. Frankly, I was very unimpressed with your team last week, as I've been very unimpressed with it for much of the last few weeks, Cam. To be honest, I have very big doubts about this roster, and you obviously were not happy with your ranking last week. And I think this is one of the big problems with me, is that I'm just so right all the time when it comes to these kind of things that it really, I think, gets under people's skin. And I couldn't have been more right when I questioned your roster. When the Monday Night Football game started and it didn't look like Sean would win, I looked at this game and I said this was a huge opportunity for Sean to get his first win. And then the Monday Night Miracle happens when Graham Gano and Devin Funchess combined for 31 points against all the odds. Cam, I do have to say I feel a little bit of sympathy for what happened to you. I have also been on the wrong end of a Graham Gano-inspired Monday Night Miracle, as I'm sure many people in this league remember my matchup with Ajit. That will forever be perhaps my darkest fantasy football moment. This has to hurt, though. Not only does your team really get its balls stolen away, just like Juju Smith-Schuster's bike, but you also lose Aaron Jones for extended time. Your running backs just absolutely putrid, 1 point each. Jones, to be fair, didn't really get a chance to do anything, but Sean beat you this week, and that means that you are just plummeting down in the rankings. 79 points really isn't that impressive anyhow. And your team namesake, Hauschka, come home. Hauschka being one of the big reasons you lost, only 4 points. And, you know, obviously not really his fault when Buffalo just got its ass completely hammered. But, Cam, I'm sorry. I can, see why you'd be upset with me being so right about this. But it's not going to change your ranking. And until you make some drastic improvements to your roster and actually start beating teams that are terrible, you are going to continue to stay down in these power rankings. Gentlemen, it is time for the number 9 team in these power rankings, and here it is, fuck Donald Trump with Jared Meyer. And for this squad, I mean, him and I really, basically you can consider us pretty much tied for this 9 spot. We both scored very similar amount of points, we both have the same record. The big reason that I ranked Jared below me, there's really only one reason, and it is the injury to Devontae Freeman turns an RB1 for him into an RB1 for me and Tevin Coleman. That's really the only reason that I made this decision here. Jared and I basically equals this week. I mean, I think I only scored 5 more points than him. And Jared has benefited greatly from one of the biggest shocks. I mean, if you would have told me that Robert Woods would be the best wide receiver in football the past 2 games, I would have said you're nuts. This guy has just come out of nowhere, a Southern California guy, and he's just dominating. I mean, Robert Woods is looking like more of a badass than Frank Woods from Call of Duty Black Ops. I mean, this guy just going off touchdown after touchdown. Quite frankly, a ridiculous performance by this guy. And then you turn around and look at some of the other players. Jimmy Graham trending way up right now. He has really, I think, almost as much as Woods turned your team into a legitimate team once again. You went from 2-6 and losing to me to having very, very, very good weeks the last 2 weeks. And Graham and Robert Woods right there at the tight end and flex spot, which is the 2 maybe least likely spots you figure are going to turn it around. and they absolutely do in a big way. Obviously, the weak running back tandem has to have you knocked down a little bit. How many times do I have to just roast Bilal Powell? I mean, just cringe overload when you're talking about Bilal Powell. Fumbled this week in a loss to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I mean, this guy's not even lighting up the Bucs. What is he really doing? Devontae Freeman's injury really hurts you. Just got a concussion immediately, just like that. And I'm sure at that point, Nibs thought, I've got this one in the bag. And then Robert Woods with that performance. I mean, you didn't even need Jags D to go off this week to win. Jared, you're at number 9. Consider yourself sort of a 9-8 hybrid, almost, me and you. Very similar right now in terms of our trends and in terms of our path that we're taking right now. So you and I both hanging around at the edges of the playoff race, but that could change at any moment. So best of luck to you, and more importantly, best of luck to me, though, because I would much rather be in the playoffs than have to watch your stupid-ass team be in there instead of mine. All right, guys, guess what? It's me again, Justin Carn, with my highest ranking of the actual season, number 8. Like I said, just consider Jared and I basically tied. Really hard to decipher which team is really better at this point. Obviously, one of the things about my team is better is that running back spot. Le'Veon Bell had a pretty good performance. I mean, it was a really grind-out, slug-out effort against that Colts team. And then Tevin Coleman, now a running back 1 in Atlanta with Devontae Freeman's concussion. He had, without a coincidence, his best performance of the year. Really spearheading a great effort by my squad. And then the receiver spot, Adam Thielen, absolutely going off. And then Marquise Goodwin, what a great story. Tragedy striking just before the game. And then he just goes out there and scores one of the best touchdowns that I've seen from the 49ers. A down the field, deep pass where he just was streaking past the Giants defense like a beautiful gazelle, just way past everyone for a touchdown. Powerful stuff there from Marquise Goodwin. Got to give the big congratulations to him. And then Kirk Cousins against a tough Minnesota matchup. I mean, last week I think he was unfortunate. He had a freaking bogus crap fumble that was attributed to him that if had not been attributed to him, I would have won last week. I think it was really bogus. I encourage, if you want to see what I'm talking about, you can look at that highlight, I'm sure, where the running back just didn't fucking grab the ball in the handoff, and then they gave Cousins the fumble instead. Really don't understand it, but this week he bounces back. 2 rushing scores to go along with a passing touchdown on one of the great catches we've seen. I'm ecstatic. Very good stuff from Cousins, 27 points, no way to complain about that. I'm getting Buck Allen off bye week. And then let's just talk briefly, I want to address this. You know, when I made that trade, dumping Dez Bryant, everyone just wanted to fucking crucify me, you know, like I committed a fucking war crime or something. And then Adam Thielen's 22 points, he scores this week, where Dez Bryant scored 25 points the last 4 weeks. I mean, which one of those guys do you want on your team? Bryant is fucking going way down, highly overrated. I could see it early in the season. Dumped his ass. Now if Jordan Reed can just please not be injured anymore for fucking once in his life, I could really get the most out of that trade. What I was hoping I would get some decent play at the tight end spot, which for the last 2 weeks has been fucking nothing. But other than that, my team, I feel like if I could just beat Solly this week, I really have got a good shot at making this playoff run happen. Obviously, you know, I'm going to do everything in my power to get this done, hoping for big stuff. And we'll see in the next coming weeks whether I can pull off this absolute miracle of a playoff run. All right, guys, talking about number 7, and frankly, I think 7 might even be high for this next Trump team, Trump 2020. I was seriously considering putting both me and Jared ahead of you. This is just a train wreck. You were so heavily reliant on Deshaun Watson to just score all your points for you, and now you don't have Watson anymore, and it's all just coming to pieces for you. Look at this. I mean, to be fair, you can't really predict when your guys are going to fucking choke on dick. Jonathan Stewart had freaking negative points, I believe, last week. Let me just verify that. Yes, -2. And then he's a 100-yard rusher this week just out of nowhere. I mean, you've had a hard time predicting which of your shitty players is going to actually do well versus the shitty players that are just going to continue to be shitty. But this roster is just weak all across the board. Whether it's quarterback, Derek Carr is kind of good, but you had to obviously replace him on his bye week this week. You couldn't do that. Gillislee sucks. Didn't get any touches. High hopes for him. I'm sure at the beginning of the year he's freaking crap. And you look at your lineup that actually played this week. There's just nothing there. There's one guy that scores double-digit points. You're not going to win. You're fighting it out with Brendan Costello at this point for just unbelievable shittiness right now. Cooper Kupp is a kid at the birthday party that all the other kids hit the piñata, and while all the other Rams players are going off and getting all that candy, they just shove Cooper Kupp out of the way and say, fuck you, Cooper Kupp. We're taking all this candy. We're scoring all these fantasy points. He's the only guy on the LA Rams that's not going off right now. And he's the guy that you ended up having, and I look at his picture, a real fucking handsome guy, a fucking pretty boy. Yeah, not cut out for the NFL, if I'm being completely honest, as I've seen these last few weeks. He freaking sucks. And then Kelvin Benjamin gets traded to Buffalo, and is there a team that's played any worse the last 2 weeks? They lose to the Jets, and then you get freaking trounced by the New Orleans Saints. Everything going wrong for you, Jake. Your team is garbage, and if you lose again, I will fucking put your ass right back there with Cam and the rest of the, shitty bunch, and put Jared and I, who have performed way better the past 2 weeks, ahead of you. Gentlemen, we begin our upper half of the power rankings at number 6, and we begin it with a guy who might not be there for long. Coming in at number 6, mind the OGAP, Austin Porter. OGAP, you lost to me this week. Highly embarrassing it has to be for a team that I'm sure, you thought after, especially after last week's performance, that you thought, I can get a win in this team. I can get my team where it needs to be in this playoff race. OGAP, things are coming apart for you, and it's really tough to see this. Dak Prescott, you relied on him heavily last week. You had a huge game, and you were able to get a win. Also, you were facing Jake. Easy as fucking pie at this point in terms of matchups. But you were facing me this week, and you didn't get so lucky with your matchup. Got a guy who scored a lot of points, and your team needed to rise to the occasion. And when Dak Prescott didn't do well, and Todd Gurley was only average, you really were hurting. All right? Orleans Darkwa got 10 points, but I'm thinking you might have been expecting more than that, given the matchup with the 49ers. But then the bottom half of your lineup, everything just comes to pieces. Hunter Henry had no points. Vikings D was exposed by the Redskins offense. A very good performance by the Redskins team. Barely avoided negative points with your Vikings defense. Chris Thompson has just not been the big playmaker that he was early in the season. Now that the Redskins are getting guys like Vernon Davis more involved, Jamison Crowder, and guys like that, they're the ones that are getting the big plays down the field now, not Chris Thompson. He's been doing very poorly recently. And then, I said it before, and I'll say it again this week, Jordy Nelson, you might not even be able to put him in your lineup anymore. He is just not getting that chemistry with Brett Hundley at all. Jordy Nelson is basically as valuable to your team as Ricky Nelson would be at this point, which is sad because Ricky Nelson is no longer with us, and that really is something I think about every day. What a guy. What a freaking guy Ricky Nelson was. And as for being what a guy, I'm not going to say the same about Paul Richardson. He had one catch. So really, Austin, what we have here is a very bad situation for your team, and it seems like it's getting worse. Hopefully you have some easy matchups in your future, but you're one of those teams I'm competing with, so I hope you lose anyway. Hoping you pull a boner these next few weeks and just tank, which looks very possible at this point with the way your team has been trending recently. So that's basically all I have for you. OGAP, you have Crabtree coming back from a bye, which may help you. But that has got to be devastating losing to me this week. Let's move on, guys, to number 5 in our power rankings, guys. And coming in right here at this spot is someone I did not expect to see here. Rowing on the Rivers and Brandon Niblock, guys. Nibs was high in my rankings. I talked him up last week. And coming into a matchup against Jared, I thought this guy is going to continue to trend up. He's going to go and get this job done. And then it looks like all throughout the day that he is going to get this job done. His team obviously not performing amazingly well. Several key pieces not doing as well as you might hope. But he's still leading, and then Devontae Freeman goes down. You think Jared is freaking done, cooked, roasted. Get this guy out of here. And then Robert Woods happens 30 points later. Nibs is not the winning team in this matchup. Let's examine further as to why this is. Now, obviously, the problem is not, as it was earlier in the season, at the quarterback position. Wilson really stabilizing your quarterback spot. 18 points. Now, he is the number 1 quarterback in fantasy football. Didn't think I'd be saying that about your team, but you made a trade for him. That is exactly the intelligence that has allowed you to be so good at fantasy football over the years, much to my annoyance. Unfortunately, though, several key pieces were missing for you. Jordan Howard, frankly, I had him in my family league, and I will be joining you in the row of people that's freaking disappointed in this effort by Jordan Howard. Come on, man. You got to get more than 5 points against that Packer team. Joe Mixon, a guy that scored a touchdown, but again, you're just looking for so much more than you actually get from Joe Mixon. I mean, this guy is so touchdown reliant. Kind of a weaker RB2, and then Julio Jones, once again, you watch this guy play, and he's so good, but he just doesn't get any volume. This guy only had 4 catches, and they were great catches. I watched this game. He played well. He just doesn't translate into fantasy points this year, and that has hurt your team tremendously. When this guy gets double digits, your team is on fire, but when he doesn't, it just sucks. And then tight end, CJ Fedorowicz. You kidding me? Fedorowicz? This guy freaking, I mean, you want a loser tight end on a team with a worse quarterback? This guy had 4 catches all year coming into this game, and he's coming back off injury. I don't know why you thought Fedorowicz was the answer here. Let's see, you have no tight ends on your bench. Travis Kelce, I guess it's a bye week fill-in, but you needed to find someone better there. I mean, I can't really talk. I picked up A.J. Darby, but man alive, Nibs. Your team really hit a hard week this week, and you're going to need to recover if you want to secure that top seed, which I'm sure you got your eye on, one of those bye weeks. So, got to step up that effort if you're going to surpass some of these top teams, but you're still very good, and I still like your chances. Gentlemen, it is now time for the number 4 ranking in our Fantasy Football League, and we've got the O.J. Simpson Dream Team, Gobble McGregor. Call this guy Dan Marino because he's putting up all the numbers and he's never getting victories. All right, this guy has a flashy lineup that everybody loves, and he's not getting the results. A 4-6 record now. Him and I and Jared tied at 4-6. What went wrong? Okay, so here's what you're thinking. You offer me this trade, Dez Bryant. You're thinking, what a great player. What a great player. I'm just going to throw in Adam Thielen, who's kind of doing well right now, and Jordan Reed, who's got big upside. And I'm just going to freaking rob Carney blind, and then I accept the trade, and everyone's thinking, wow, what a freaking genius this guy is. And then, of course, obviously, I outsmarted you. You know, that's par for the course, really. I mean, you thought you had me beat, and then, yeah, I don't think so. Not letting that happen. Adam Thielen just freaking crushing it right now. Scores, like I said, 22 points this week, more than almost as many as Bryant the past 4 games. Bryant is going nowhere fast, and Thielen is soaring above everyone's expectations. It's not about the name of the player, it's about the number of points that they score. And that's very important when it comes to your lineup because you got a lot of big names there. honestly, your best player the last couple of weeks has been Robbie Anderson, who is the least recognizable name on your team, and I think a guy that I respect heavily, just kind of an underdog story, and I love Robbie Anderson. He's one of my favorite players right now on a crusty Jets team, getting the job done. But your guys are just really hurting, and you play in Pablo this week, and you're thinking, you know, I could have brought frickin' Fredo into the league, but instead I brought Einstein. This guy is blowing everyone's mind. You could have brought a guy that you could beat easily. Instead, you bring in a guy that's just way smarter than everybody else, it seems like this week, knows all the moves, and he just blows your team out of the water this week. Hard week again. All of these big names and all of these single-digit point totals. That's the story of your season right now at 4-6. You've had some weeks where you've just absolutely dominated, and you've had some weeks where nobody has really looked twice at how many points you've scored. So we'll see if this trend continues. But you're going to have to start actually winning games if you want to be in the playoffs. Just in case you forgot that, you have to win games. Winning isn't everything, it's the only thing. I know you love Vince Lombardi, and who wouldn't? But you're not being very Lombardi-esque right now. So fucking work on it. Moving on in the rankings to the number 3 spot. And we have got Shit Mixers and Chris Hasenheier. Chris, I questioned your team's consistency in last week's video, and you went out there and you stepped up and you scored the top points this week. Chris, I am still not 100% sold on your team's consistency, but I definitely, I think, showed that I have a little bit more faith moving you up to number 3 in these rankings. The last time I moved you this high, you fucking stunk, though, and had 2 weeks where you scored below 60 points. So try not to do that again. Try and continue to do what you're doing. You're really crawling closer and closer every week now to the playoffs. You're a 6-4 team. You haven't been consistent, but these last 2 weeks there hasn't been a better team. There has not been a better team in the last 2 weeks than you. 3rd in points last week at 95, 1st at 112. Box score time, and what we're looking at here is double digits almost everywhere you look. Really good stuff. Traded Adrian Peterson. That trade has been, I don't know if you got really anything good back for that, but as far as the way your team has looked, you have McCown now as your quarterback. The guy is not super good, but I mean, there's pretty much was the best option out there. You could have picked up Jared Goff. That would have been a little smarter, but McCown hasn't really set you back too far, and then your running back tandem, Alvin Kamara and Christian McCaffrey. They combined for 17 rushes, which is what most teams in this league have, a guy that gets that many carries every week, maybe 2 guys that get that many carries every week. Your guys combined for 17 carries, and yet you look at the points, and they combined for 35 points at the running back spot. That's just brilliant. Alvin Kamara in New Orleans is just crushing. He's becoming a really, really great player. I love seeing it. And then Christian McCaffrey was a guy that you acquired in a trade, and that's just looking like a great move on your part. 16 points this week. He's got 2 touchdowns. Barely got any yards, but he's got a nose for the end zone, and that's what you look for in any fantasy lineup is guys that get touchdowns. And then Larry Fitzgerald, you're getting ready to count this guy out, and then he goes into a matchup with Seattle, and he freaking nails it. 113 yards. You're going to be very happy with that performance. Matt Bryant, a good kicker. Rams D has just been crushing it for you all year. They played, frankly, a pretty easy schedule, but they've got a lot of talented players in that defense. Shit Mixers, guys. What can I say? Very good stuff from you, Chris. Some of the moves you've made have been good. Some of them haven't been great, but at the end of the day, you've made enough plays and you've made enough moves to where your 112 points was number 1 this week. And you can't argue with number 1, so that's why you're number 3, Chris. I love it. Love seeing this from you, man. After last year's disaster, I actually have, kind of rooting for you at this point to separate into that top tier so that I can sort of clear out the rest of the league for you. All right, Chris, that's going to do it for your ranking. Like I said, I love it. You proved me wrong when I ranked you very low in the power rankings, so keep it up. Moving on to rankings, guys. This is where it gets big. Number 2, and it is the USS Marine. Pablo, great stuff from you. You did it. And I don't really know how you did it, but you did it. And your team, it's crazy. Your team is operating in some sort of twilight zone where things don't happen the way they're supposed to. Okay, when you lose all of your best players, you're supposed to also lose games. You're not supposed to make genius transactions that somehow work perfectly and continue to win. That's not the way fantasy football is supposed to work. You're supposed to just lie down and die and say, it wasn't my year this year. Ezekiel Elliott gets suspended. Odell Beckham gets injured and out for the season. You're not supposed to do this, Pablo. I don't know if anyone told you that when you joined fantasy football here, but this is ridiculous, okay? The only thing more ridiculous than that is how many times you changed your team name in a very short span, okay? It seemed like on Sunday, every time I was refreshing the page to get a new score update, your team name had changed. You changed your team name more times than the number of points you scored this week. It seemed like you finally settled on the USS Marine, which I like. Obviously, I'm going to be in favor of a team name like that, but that's the only thing to question about you. Colin Kaepernick gets named GQ Citizen of the Year, whether you agree or disagree, but I don't think anyone would have disagreed if GQ had named Isaiah Crowell the crustiest man of the year, but yet you time up your pick and picking him up and starting him so well to get his 15-point performance scoring a touchdown this week. I mean, that's just brilliant. And then, obviously, Sterling Shepard, you were probably just freaking going nuts thinking about what he was going to do to that 49ers defense, and he did. 11 catches for 142 yards. Huge day. 91 points. You were playing the top scoring team in the league, and you just said, you know what, old buddy, Gabo, fuck off. I'm number 1, and, you're almost number 1. It's pretty much close enough at this point for the way your season has gone. Anyone who's not impressed with what Pablo has done is very hard to please, and Simon Cowell-esque, I would say. So, good job, Pablo. I'm excited to see the direction of your team and the way you just continue to win despite every reason in the world to stop winning. So, good on you, man. And now, obviously, we know who's going to be number 1 again. So stay tuned. It's coming up in about 3 seconds. You're simply the best. Better than all the rest. Better than anyone I've ever met. Congratulations to the number 1 team in fantasy football, Nate Solly and Team Brady Bunch. Hope you like that song. Definitely wrote that myself and recorded it using another woman. It was not someone else's song. All me there, guys. Let's get a little bit deeper with Nate Solly here. This guy dumps Matty Chapman and picks up something which, in my opinion, is much more valuable and much more beautiful, and that is fantasy football skill. This guy is just killing it, just freaking sweeping those dumb hoes to the side and getting to the good stuff. That's what I'm talking about, man. Freaking broing up all over the place. And when I say broing up, I mean throwing up all over this league. Look at the number of points Mark Ingram has scored last few weeks. It's just been astronomical. This guy has risen from irrelevant to a top 10 fantasy running back, and since his bye week and they traded Adrian Peterson, I would not pick anyone I'd rather have on my team over that stretch than Mark Ingram. What a back. What a back, and he's got 3 touchdowns, picks up a hat trick this week. You don't see that very often anymore. And then A.J. Green, everyone's questioning this guy, wondering when he's going to step up and look like his old self. Well, guys, your questions have been answered. He is back. A 17-point performance for him this week. And then in other news, Seahawks D and Stephen Gostkowski have been as good as they have been all year. A couple of double-digit performances there at the bottom of your lineup. Brady, I've been predicting that he's going to do better, and obviously my prediction has been proved correct. A 22-point performance. anything over 20 at the quarterback spot, you can't be upset with that. And then Carlos Hyde quietly having a very solid day at the running back spot as well for you. I am not looking forward to playing you this next week. It's not going to be easy for you. I promise. I'm going to make it tough. It's going to be hard. You're going to have to grind it out to get that next win. I'm coming for you, Nate, and the chances of me coming for you successfully are not great. But if there's one guy that can come great, it is me. I've proved it time and time again. There's never been anyone there to see it, but hopefully that's going to change real soon. Nate, you're number one, providing the stability I asked for last week. Thank you for that. And I thank you all for watching this video. Hopefully you enjoyed it, and look forward to some more bomb-ass videos coming up in the future. Bringing the heat, bringing the passion, bringing the danger, just like I do every week. Let's do it, guys.